Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is on the ones and twos. And we have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of things have been going on.
A lot.
You might have caught some of the videos that Jonny Sue put up late last night. There he is. We went to a town hall. We got a couple questions with Tulsi and missed everything going on. All hell is broken loose. It happened on us pretty quickly, I think, when it came to this situation. However, some of us might have seen it coming. But President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, has stepped down. He has sought asylum and is landed in Mexico right now. And all shit broke loose, fam.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people have been hesitant to call this a coup, but this is exactly what it is. And if you've been paying attention at all to what's happened in Haiti, to what's happened in Venezuela, to just the different sort of protests that are there, you're going to know that this was most definitely a coup. And what's going on here is that Evo Morales is a leftist socialist president. He ruled over Bolivia in a way that helped the majority of the indigenous populations. These were poor, working class indigenous people that rose up and elected him. He was very similar to Maduro in the sense of he was a working class. He wasn't somebody from the elite class.
You know, it was the fastest growing economy in Latin America.
Exactly. The fastest growing economy. And he, there was so much positivity going on. And then all of a sudden we see the beginning of U.S. interference, and then we also see how everything else is aligning, and we're going to talk a little bit more about China and about a couple other things, but we just wanted to start with that. You
want to start with the world, the timeline I think you want to do, Jonny?
Yes.
Said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's right here.
The first thing I wanted to bring up, kind of like how do we figure out, because we weren't sure when we first heard what's going on,
Yeah.
So one of the main things I looked into was, let's look at the timeline. So we have the timeline here. Basically, Evo Morales seeks a fourth term on October 20th. They go to the polls with Morales, Latin America's longest-serving leader, seeking a fourth straight term. His only serious challenger is centrist Carlos Mesa. And then there was a second round. Partial results released hours after polls put Morales on 45% of the votes and Mesa 38%. Vote count stalls. The release of official results is inexplicably stalled overnight. On October 21st, international observers asked for clarification, and Mesa accused Morales of cheating to avoid a runoff. The opposition supporters protest outside key vote counting centers in the capital. Late October 21st, the election authority releases more results showing Morales is edging towards an outright victory with 95% of the votes counted. Organization of American States, OAS, monitors express deep concern and surprise at the drastic and hard-to-explain change. Mesa alleges fraud. Now, OAS, fams.
Yeah.
Let's look at who they are.
Who are the OAS? What off the bat, what do you guys know?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the NED in some ways. Right. They do kind of validate and oversee elections at times. There's been some positive things about them, mostly bad, but, once again, I think they're an arm of the State Department is what I would say, more than anything, Yeah. So.
Okay. And, Jimmy Carter has his voting institution, right?
Yes.
Yes.
What's it called?
The Carter Institute.
The Carter Institution, right? So he said that Venezuela's elections were democratic and most democratic in the world, right?
Some of the best they've seen out of 80 countries they observed.
And so I went on OAS's site to see what they said about Venezuela. And OAS Permanent Council agrees to not recognize the legitimacy of Nicolas Maduro's new term in January 2019. So that's just kind of one clue to look at to see, okay.
It's a great clue, buddy.
One step to see, maybe clue. This is probably a coup, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now let's go on with what you guys have.
Well, I mean, I just want to say before Fiorella gets started here, and I put that on there, the first tweet for you up there, that in the, and there's the folders right there. In the macro sense of what's going on in Bolivia, Evo Morales was the first indigenous leader of that country. You know what I'm saying? He was as George Galloway would say, a champion of the poor or whatnot. One of the fastest growing economies, you mentioned to it. He was lifting people out of poverty. He was giving a name, a recognition for the indigenous people. And I think, fam, when we talk a lot about these schools, we saw it in Venezuela. We made videos about it. There is a kind of racial tendencies, a way some of the classist, elitist, more of white colored skinned people within the country are very bad to the
It's not
indigenous
kind
people.
of. It's blatant. I mean, they refer to these native people as cockroaches.
Yeah.
And that was similar jargon to what happened during the Maduro versus Juan Guaido altercation. It's the same thing. So you have these indigenous people who in Latin America are looked on as less than. They are looked down as just almost savages. Still, that mindset, that colonial mindset is there, and the majority of the people that are living in the bigger cities are speak Spanish. They're completely removed from the native way of life, and they see them as an impediment, as backwards. They support more neoliberal type of policies of the United States, and they are completely against that. So I want to say that Evo Morales not only called out the United States, but he called out the United States in general as to what they're doing in Latin America. He specifically said, in recent weeks, we have seen the serious damage caused by the drums of war. And he is referring to Latin America. We condemn all forms of armed violence in our lands and reject the aggression of the United States. And he told this when he addressed the Euro-Latin American Parliamentary Assembly in Santa Cruz.
We have a video of that, correct? It's your tweet.
Yeah, well, so this tweet, so this is going to show kind of
I saw this is great stuff.
Who he is, pretty much, and like, because it's really, really sad that we got rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Quiero decirles, a Estados Unidos no le interesa la democracia. Si así fuera, no habrían financiado golpes de Estado y apoyado a dictadores. No amenazaría con intervenciones militares a gobiernos democráticamente electos, como lo hace contra Venezuela. No le interesan los derechos humanos ni la justicia. Si así fuera, firmarían los convenios internacionales de protección de los derechos humanos o las amenazas a los mecanismos de investigación de la Corte Penal Internacional. No promovería el uso de la tortura. No abandonarían el Consejo de Derechos Humanos y no separarían a niños migrantes de sus familias ni los pondrían en jaulas. A Estados Unidos no le interesa el multilateralismo. Si así fuera, no se habrían alejado del Acuerdo de París o del Pacto Global de Migraciones. No lanzarían ataques unilaterales, ni decisiones como declarar ilegalmente a Jerusalén como capital de Israel.
So he basically called out the United States' policies regarding Venezuela, human rights abuses, not protecting the Palestinians, and moving the capital into Jerusalem. He's basically calling out all the things that we have done as a country, and just they are very. He posted a post about socialism. Like he's a socialist. He's probably to the left of Bernie.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he sought asylum in Mexico with AMLO, who is another leftist president. And let's kind of go over a little bit of the situation step by step in case you guys haven't been following it, because all these situations are always complex, and they all stem. They don't happen overnight. They seem to happen overnight. But if we've been following for a while, we'll see that the mechanisms were in place for this to happen.
Yeah. And the macro too is for a long time, Evo Morales has pretty much rejected Western imperialism and all the corporations that come with it. He's gotten tight with the Chinese. There's a lot of lithium in Bolivia too as well. We're gonna dive into a lot of these things. There's a lot of answers. So the macro is you know, like you said, if we've been paying attention for this for years, you know, we know his relationship with Maduro and stuff. They're friends. So we can see something like this coming, because how long would the United States allow a socialist government like this where they're lifting up indigenous poor people?
Out of poverty.
Exactly. Pretty sooner or later, you know, we're going to drop the hammer, especially with the Chinese mentality in there as well.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because, here's an article saying where, Evo Morales said the drums of war were damaging Latin America and lashed out at the U.S. aggression. Yeah,
so he's aware of it. And I think it's really dangerous when people speak out, when somebody of that power who's a president in another country speaks out against Latin America. And it's adding on, you guys. So here's a thread by Kevin Cashman. He said, if you haven't been following the situation in Bolivia, here's the rundown. Briefly, the OAS, an emboldened opposition, which clearly is not the most popular party in the country. The media and the Trump administration ousted a successful leftist leader. For the longer story, here it is. Evo Morales, the first indigenous president in a country that's majority indigenous. And that's true. Let me reiterate, Bolivia is majority indigenous people. Very, very, maybe about 3% of the population are non-indigenous to that point. And it's really hard to decipher at certain points, but that is very true. They have overseen an economic transformation since his first term. He's very popular to this day. And then he lists a link to where you can see the transformation. He was initially barred from running for another term by term limits. He sought a referendum to abolish term limits, but it was narrowly defeated. Yet the Supreme Court ruled that term limits were unconstitutional, so he was permitted to run again. And term limits, if we remember FDR, it's unconstitutional to impose term limits. That's a whole other thing. Like, we in the United States have them, but in a lot of other countries, it seems as unconstitutional to impose them.
I feel like a lot of Americans wouldn't want to change that rule, though.
Yeah, I feel like
it was changed before. 75% of our presidencies had the right to go and run again. FDR just chose to break with tradition and do it himself.
Right.
And he was so popular, Democratic Socialist, that they had to change the fucking laws so he couldn't run again. That's how popular his New Deal Democratic Socialism was. And I just would like to say right here, what Fiorella is saying is they didn't overturn the decision from the referendum. They just withheld a prior decision within their constitution to say, no, it's unconstitutional to do this.
Right.
So they weren't like changing the rule. No, they were just upholding their constitution.
That was what their constitution said.
Yeah.
And they were actually would be changing it if you were going to bar him from it. So if you think this invalidates the election or means that Morales is authoritarian, please explain to me why court decisions in Bolivia should be interpreted in a different way than any other country. The election happened on October 20th. To win in the first round, a candidate needs to get at least 50% of the vote, or 40%, and win by 10 percentage points over the next highest candidate. So to understand why all the controversy is about, you need to know that there are two courts in the Bolivian system. The TREP, it's a quick count, 2 counts, and then and the official count. So there's 2 counts, and the quick count is on so that on election night some results are released. The Organization of American States, OAS, which observes elections and provides technical guidance, like we mentioned, has been recommending these types of systems and implementing them in a variety of countries, including Bolivia. This list has more places where it's been implemented. A quick count is supposed to provide some confidence the election is progressing normally and give the media something to report on. To me, 2 sets of results seem like it would be confusing. And this time it was. I agree. I think that's kind of dumb. As the results were coming in, Carlos Mesa Morales, his main opponent, was already saying how he had progressed to the second round. He was saying this based on a quick count and based on incomplete results from the quick count. And so here he is. And before the transmission was halted, Mr. Mesa declared that he had achieved an unquestionable victory, which allows us to say with certainty that we made it into the second round. And this is kind of reminiscent of like what we saw with Sarah Smith and Kishama Sawant, when we saw that they were losing. And then that would be like a quick count, and that's all you would get. And then the full count would be after. This is why you can't really declare victories or losses fully as a candidate, because you really don't know. Like the later votes that come in might change everything, and that's pretty much what happened.
And it had to have like that 10%, which we're going to talk about right now. So
when the quick count reached 83.85% of vote sheets counted, the Electoral Authority held a press conference reporting the result. The results at this point were Morales 45.71% and Mesa receiving 37.84%, a difference of 7.87 percentage points. This would indicate a second round, but remember, this is only 83.85% of the results and is not the official count. At this point, and this is where the controversy started, the Electoral Authority stopped the quick count.
The OAS.
Exactly. And they gave several reasons, which all seemed to be true. The official count had started, and they didn't want to confuse people. They had pledged to release that more than 80% and did. They were investigating how one of their contractors used a server. So, and then let's go back. Eventually, the Electoral Authority was under so much pressure, especially because the media conflated the official and the quick counts, that they restarted the quick count. And they were going to release a final quick count results, but the pressure again to report the results continuously. There is always pressure to report results, as we've seen. So at about 95.63% of the vote sheets counted, they reported Morales having a lead of 46.86 to Mesa's 36.72. This is slightly over the 10 percentage points. So all hell broke loose, and they were immediately accused of fraud. So that's kind of how the fraud happened. And he says, I should point out that we are still not talking about the official count, which is the only legal vote count. Anyway, the OAS released a statement when they said that the jump for Morales between these two data points was impossible. So the OAS is the one that led to the idea that this was fraudulent. And yeah, they pretty much that's where this all stems from, right? And then it's important to point out this is something that happens with Morales because he was an indigenous leader. His support is mainly rural. And so even reports in this, you're going to see that in the report much later. And so the quick count trend matches very well with the eventual
more rural.
official count.
It actually takes more time for transportation of the ballots and everything.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah. And so that when they eventually released the count, Morales still won 47.08 to 36.51%. And if you hadn't been watching the polls before the election, 5 out of 6 of them predicted the same results. So how does this fraud match up with the polls? Like if it had been fraudulent, the polls wouldn't have been matching, but it was matching all along. So this is just so you guys know, like that a lot of people who are falsely saying that this isn't a coup, that he was a fraud, that he committed election fraud, which is the way our media is spinning it. And I think we have a thing on that, like how our media is spinning it how the media is spinning it over here, how they're kind of pushing us to look at the headlines. Bolivian President Evo Morales resigns amidst fraud. And then you see the Guardian too, resigns after election fraud dispute, and then Bolivia blah 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 to step down in huge first settled by disputed election. So this is all kind of taking into account like the election and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Johnny and I were even sitting down when it's like breaking news, CNN, amid election fraud, Evo Morales resigns. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think yesterday we were talking about the situation. We talked about it all this morning, too, as well. It's very, very complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to Bolivia. Now, for us who follow this stuff, we're going to see right off the bat, this is just regime change playbook 101. But there was also this whole situation coming in with the Supreme Court making the decision, the referendum that occurred. And more than anything, too, as well, fam, it's like, when it came to Hong Kong, when it came to Venezuela, we had direct lines of financing from the NED and these NGOs.
Yeah.
The Gray Zone just went on, and they were reporting some other connections, and these are all breaking news. I never seen them do a show like that. 3 guys on, taking questions, looking about...
The Gray Zone, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've never... Most of their stuff is a little bit more like interviews, whatnot. They never really addressed the audience. But in this particular case, they were doing so, and it wasn't just a special edition. It was just, it's a new situation, and new information's coming to light. When I talked to Rachel Brunke today, and Rachel Brunke, she was in the Peace Corps for many years, lived in Honduras for 2 years, understands Latin and Central America pretty much. She even said the thing that's really, because I said, Rachel, am I missing something? Because I can't find the financial ties here. When we asked Tulsi Gabbard about Hong Kong, financial ties were all over the place.
Right.
This particular situation, when we were able to talk to her and ask her, those financial ties aren't there. We don't know who paid off the cops. We don't know who paid off the police yet. It's yet to be discovered. But I think new information is coming to light. It's hard to not say, and I would bet my life it's a regime change, definitely. And I think you have some damaging evidence as well. But there is a lot of homework, a lot of things to be done, and a lot of things to figure out, and it's unfolding right before us. So
Yeah, this is like breaking news.
Yeah, this is
he just arrived in Mexico today. Right? Yeah,
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. We have a super chat.
So
on
the super
MCSC.
chat contribution on the MCSC network, is that the only one so far? Yep. In the velvet darkness of the blackest night, burning bright, there's a guiding star, no matter who or what you are. Giovanna Liviana, thank you so much.
wow,
Thank you,
that's
Giovanna.
poetic.
That is very, very poetic. Everybody's still over on the Gray Zone. We're still waiting for you guys to get on over here. Get on over here and watch the Convo Couch.
They're going like really in depth, so we're gonna do another show, and we are gonna have Mark Sloboda on tonight.
Yeah.
So Bolivia is definitely gonna be in the news.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cycle here.
Yeah. So real quick, let me just go to what exactly is happening outside of them going after Morales. So they not only went after Morales, but they are going after all of his all of his not just his family, but his supporters, his cabinet, everybody. Here's a video that where we show what they're doing within hours of the bloodthirsty fascist right. The accomplices sent government leaders and bureaucrats into exile, and they're rounding people up in a witch hunt. Police present the president of the TSE, Maria Eugenia Choque, and the vice president Antonio Costas, who had resigned, and they the way they were treating them, and there are far worse videos showing just how they're treating these people. They shaved one woman's head. They burned Evo Morales' sister's house down. This is kind of also not just, he didn't resign because, he was guilty. And that's what it makes, I was really pissed off when I found out he resigned. But here's the thing. He chose basically the peace of the people over more bloodshed, because the military and the police were against him. Yeah. So it's very difficult when the military and the police are against you. And the military is has been backed by pretty much Western imperialism. And there are audio tapes to prove that, which I will get to later. And we're going to have to go in depth at a later time, because it's so much information. It's all in Spanish. So in order to translate it, because it's not a direct translation, it's a lot. But what is basically is said is that the Western imperialism had a hand in this, and they were very much cooperating with people like Marco Rubio,
Ted
Cruz, and Bob Melendez, I think is the other one. So,
they were. And then once again, we don't have them on audio because that's what I was searching for, but you said you had the opposition on audio.
We have the opposition
saying
on audio.
They gave them the green light. So it's once again, we're looking for that smoking gun. We got it in Hong Kong, where we got somebody from the State Department sitting there talking to the protesters.
Or like when we got in Venezuela, when Mike Pompeo was like, oh, we have all these.
So let's just show the leaked audio, Johnny. I just want to show, if you guys go to this link, this is the opposition leaders who are pretty much forming like a coup. They're calling for the coup against Evo Morales. This is when they were planning it. And if you guys scroll down, there's pretty much a summary, but I want to read this little part right here, where she says a series of 16 audios in which opposition leaders call for a coup against the newly reelected President Evo Morales were leaked through various social platforms. Local media of Bolivia point out that the destabilizing plan would have been coordinated by the United States Embassy in Bolivia prior to the elections, and cites U.S. Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who are said to have direct contact with the Bolivian opposition in the strategy to overthrow Morales. The plan focuses on the fact that if Evo Morales won the elections on October 20th, either way, a civil-military transition government would be established. The new government would allege fraud in the electoral process and would not recognize Morales' electoral victory.
Wow.
So this is verbatim what happened. And either way, like, if he lost, great, and if he won, great. They were still gonna do this anyway. That was the whole plan. Like, if he didn't lose, they were gonna do this anyway. Yeah. And it's really disgusting when you see like what just how far they're willing to go to do this. And we have a summary of the audio. I'm gonna just look through it for you guys. Just kind of read through like the summaries, because it's a lot. So in the first part, the first audio, they basically talk about how the senators, U.S. Senators Marco Rubio, Bob Menendez, and Ted Cruz are directly involved in the coup.
And they say their names.
They
right?
name them.
Yeah.
A member of the Bolivian opposition on audio 2, an alleged former military man, calls for an armed uprising. So this is the military, of course. And a member of the Bolivian opposition who has yet to be identified proposed to point out the house of supporters of the president's political party and to instill fear in the population and influence them later to support the coup. Now, I started listening to the audio, and what he's basically doing is fear mongering, saying if they're going to believe us if we say this and that. And it's just they're literally saying this out loud, and it's in an audio. I mean, I don't know how much more proof we need. A member of the Bolivian opposition, who is still to be identified, raises a strategy to be followed by the Bolivian opposition, establishing itself as a premise that invalidates the elections on October 20th, generates a military civil uprising, and creates a national strike. When you do this, this is the playbook. You make it look like this is a genuine, organic protest of the people. But once the military is involved and the police are involved, then it's like, okay, like, how can, they're going to be hurting the people that stand against them. So it's just like, it's Morales' choice as to whether to continue that and then seem like a power-hungry, grabbing guy, or to just say, okay, fine. Like, and it's a very tough position to be in. In addition, he commented that there are active members in the National Armed Forces and the police that would support these actions. So obviously it wasn't everybody, but it was like they directly went to the military and said, hey, do this and we're going to have your backs. And this is exactly the definition of a coup. You just, you sneak up on them and you overthrow them.
Jonny, is there anything going on Ted Cruz's Twitter or Marco Rubio's Twitter? If we could take a look, see if they've been questioned or asked or
they lied,
how they sidestepped it, whatnot. I mean,
they lied.
The whole thing is that the smoking gun is we don't have them on audio, and I was hoping we would get them on audio.
No, are you kidding me? They're smart enough to not get on
audio.
Well,
I mean,
hold on.
I was going to just try to get to one of these pages, but go ahead.
Okay.
You got more to read?
Yeah. So then a conversation between the members of the Bolivian opposition that shows the participation of Manfred Reyes Villa, another member of the U.S.-based opposition who had planned the coup d'etat. So the support of that opposition is obtaining information from the evangelical church, and the Brazilian government is mentioned. So Brazil, the Brazilian government, obviously current with Bolsonaro, of course, is one of the people that is also involved. This referenced an alleged man of confidence for Brazilian President Bolsonaro, who also advised a Bolivian presidential candidate who has not yet been identified. And they also stand out.
So that is like what? Then this is like money through, we're talking about through Brazil's government now, kind of.
It's not as much, I mean, I'm sure money, but it's
support
more of like military and support.
You guys see the trash that Marco Rubio's freaking
Just read it really quick, Johnny.
Get a picture of it up. What does it say?
Here, Marco Rubio, 11 hours ago. At NYT Opinion gets it right on #Bolivia. What brought Mr. Morales down was not his ideology or foreign meddling. It was the claim to be the ultimate arbiter of the will of the people, entitled to crush any institution that stands in his way. So he referenced a New York Times opinion piece. And then down here, #Bolivia Morales' re-election is unconstitutional. He stopped vote count when early results showed him going to runoff. Issued final results giving him improbable gains. At OAS official found irregularities. He leaves after military refused his orders to attack protesters.
That is, see, I look how gaslighting Marco Rubio.
He's trash. I can't stand that man.
Disgusting, terrible.
He turns it around, and this is.
Yeah.
And under that, he retweeted Juan Guaido. So, my gosh. I want to see the comments.
Well, and so here's the thing. They're talking about voting irregularities. Guys, this is the same thing they said about Venezuela. Yeah. About Maduro's elections.
Ben Norton tweeted back. He's like, #Bolivia facts. Supreme Court said Morales could run again.
Yep.
Early results myth is opposition lie.
Yep.
Scientific analysis by experts found no proof of irregularities.
Nope.
U.S. puppet OAS gave no evidence.
Yep.
Opposition fascists attacked leftists, burned down houses.
Yep.
And OAS was the one that stopped the count.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just bullshit. And let me see. Let's see if there's more, but I'll have to look at everything else up. But they also mentioned the Cuban embassy. Former Bolivian Colonel Julio Cesar Maldonado Leoni was the president of the National Military Committee, gives orders to implement all kinds of action against the Cuban embassy and its diplomats, instills fear and hatred towards Cubans to leave the country. So this to me seems what it is, like an attack against leftist socialist democracies, because they're mentioning Cuba and, Brazil, of course, we broke out Lula, But at the same time, who's in power is Bolsonaro. So they're going to align themselves with Brazil. And a lot of this has to do with what happened in Chile.
Yeah.
What's going on in Chile.
Absolutely.
And then China. And like I said, we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. But I just wanted to give you guys a glimpse as to what the audios are, because they're very deep. And they talk about a lot of not just what's the interactions between the United States and Bolivia, but also with other governments like Cuba. And there was a couple of other tweets and things that I was looking at.
And
about
if y'all want to
Argentina.
see those audio files, just look up this title: Bolivia audios linked from opposition leaders calling for a coup against Evo Morales.
Yeah.
That's a good article to look at.
EN24. You can hear them yourselves. We're gonna do a translation video later.
Yeah.
And Pasta, let's talk about China, because I know you love China, and China. Pasta wants to.
Well, you know how China's going around, kind of building up people's infrastructure, whatnot. They're making deals all along Africa, all in South and Central America, and Bolivia picks Chinese partner for the $2.3 billion lithium projects.
Yeah. And can I just say, someone sent me this to try to say you were wrong about China, and then he apologized and said, "Oh no, shit."
It was kind of right. Kind of right. They're going around. They're helping. Look, China has moved all these people out of poverty, and that's how they're growing. You know what I'm saying? So we've seen this for years now. This is long. This is like 9 months ago, but we understand the lithium that's going on there, and they wanted to get in there. So they bring in their monetary system, bring in their infrastructure, bring in their workers, just like the Silk Road Initiative over there in Europe. They're going to lift people out of poverty. Yeah. So when they present this to Evo Morales, say, "Hey man, you've done great with your indigenous people in poverty. We're going to give you another step forward. We're going to help you even out. We're going to help you with your infrastructure. Just let us set up some corporations. See all that delicious lithium over there? Why don't you hook us up with that? We'll give you a fair price for it, but hook us up with it. And
also, we'll have your back against the Western imperialism."
Exactly.
Because that's what it comes down to. And Chile can't get to these lithium these areas with lithium, and so that's a whole other thing with what's going on in Chile and in China. And what they don't want is the Western imperialists don't want them to align themselves with and get a strong anti-imperialist Latin America.
Yeah.
Latin America, if you haven't noticed, was slowly becoming anti-imperialist with Venezuela. That coup failed.
Yep.
And before that, what was it? It was Nicaragua.
Yeah, Nicaragua, and then
Honduras.
We had Honduras.
Honduras, with Manuel Zelaya.
And it was just so, like, they are so afraid of seeing a successful government that is leftist socialist, especially ruled by the working class.
Exactly.
The United States is, we can't even have Medicare for all. We can't even have those things here. If we see a successful rise, and Evo Morales and Bernie Sanders were like friends. They had attended many events together. They had pictures together, and it's very interesting to see all of this play out, because Bernie Sanders, as we've said, has been kind of like not too outspoken on foreign policy related things, and if he is like on China, he got it completely wrong. Kashmir, same thing. Yeah. But when it came to this, him and Ilhan Omar had a couple of great tweets. Ilhan Omar said, "There's a word for the president of the country being pushed out by the military. It's called a coup. We must unequivocally oppose political violence in Bolivia. Bolivians deserve free and fair elections." And then Bernie said, "I am very concerned about what appears to be a coup in Bolivia, where the military, after weeks of political unrest, intervened to remove President Evo Morales. The U.S. must call an end to violence and support Bolivia's democratic institutions." I didn't put AOC's up, but she said the same thing in Spanish. She said, lo que se llama esto es un golpe de Estado, which is coup in Spanish. It's
coup is golpe de Estado
in Spanish. Yeah. And I love this. I think it's great. It's a great start. The only thing I have a problem with is that this is it's not so much just about it being maybe a coup. It is a coup, and it's not so much about being about the democratic elections. The elections were democratic. There's no proof that they were not. It's about us pushing regime change in another country through the regime change playbook, ousting another leader that happens to be a leftist socialist again, and pushing our own puppet type of right-wing government. And the woman that's taken over, let me see if I forget her name, but she is definitely, she's the interim president right now.
Yeah.
And she is not somebody that is a leftist. She's like more of a right-winger. This is, if in essence, this is a right-wing takeover of the country. And it's racially driven,
Yeah.
like Pasta said.
It's about resource extraction. It's about lithium. You know what I'm saying? It's about, once again, it's like what they said in Lula. And the thing I want to mention over here right now is not even Tulsi, Bernie. No, but when it came to Lula, they were behind the 8 ball on this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? When it came to Evo Morales, they were behind the 8 ball on this and stuff like that. They got to get ahead of these things. It's one thing when a coup is happening right now, but as you see stuff going on and you see things progressing, especially for Lula's, because nobody was calling Lula out. We were sitting here talking about the Pink Dolphins, and nobody was saying jack. Not one politician, until when all of a sudden stuff starts leaking down the road, information comes out, the Amazon's almost on freaking fire, and here we are today. So, I mean, kudos for them for calling this stuff out now, but let's get on this stuff, ladies and
They
gentlemen.
need to be
We're
stronger statements.
We're behind the 8 ball when it comes to this shit. We are lacking. Our politicians need to get on this stuff and get on it quickly.
And the lady's name that's interim president is Janine Añez. That's
Yes.
her name.
And she was a Bolivian senator, and she just declared herself president.
Yeah.
So
This
that's
is-
breaking news right now.
Yeah,
so.
this is how coups happen. We have a few super chats, fam.
Yes, Antonio T on the CONVO Couch YouTube. Thank you for the super chat contribution, as it is always appreciated on the couch. You all are great journalists and activists who need to combat CIA-backed propaganda from the mainstream media, neocons, and neoliberals. Thanks for your dedication. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank
T.
you, Antonio.
We appreciate it. And my
Abolish
boy,
the CIA
That-
is I mean,
I love when you put it up, fam.
I was calling that out because it's like I was so angry. Like, this is clear CIA. Like, this
Yeah.
is clearly the CIA doing this.
Democracy.
Democracy.
And the U.S. is worrying about Russia meddling. I know. Democracy, I
The
can tell you
mainstream
that.
media, yeah.
Super chat contribution for Giovanna Liviana, who was on the MCSC network, is now on the CONVO Couch YouTube, as it is always appreciated on the couch.
Thank you,
Darkness
Giovanna.
must go down the river of night streaming. Flow, morphia, slow. Let the sun and the light come streaming into my life.
I feel like I need whatever you
Into
have.
My life.
I need some of that Zen, Giovanna. Send it to me, please. I need it right now.
Can I say
Yeah.
that you got it right? You were saying that this is a U.S. backed coup, and they don't want to see a socialist country run by indigenous people
No.
succeed
No.
in South America. They don't want Americans to see that happen.
Exactly.
They don't want that to happen at all in South America. That's why they did it to Nicaragua, Honduras, Venezuela, now fucking
Bolivia.
Bolivia.
Yeah. They want to make sure
This
that we
shit's
stay
pissing me
stupid,
off.
uneducated, not going on. And if
Why
we
are
see
they
another guy in a
suppress-
porter,
They're suppressing
Can you-
socialist countries.
They are.
They're
And-
suppressing the right thing to
and-
do, which is invest in the big resource in these countries. What's the big resource? What's the
lithium is big there, and
the big resource is the people.
the
Yeah.
people.
You give
well,
the
yeah,
people.
that's
You give the people
Well, you're
health
going-
care.
you're
You
going
give the
Lula
people
now on
food.
us.
You give them what they need to
Education,
survive, and they
everything.
can.
yeah.
They're the means of production.
And Jonathan, can you please do a quick search? I forgot to tell you. They're burning down the flag of the peace. It's a rainbow flag.
It's
So
like the second flag for the indigenous people of
yeah. So when I
Bolivia.
first I saw this flag when I was in Peru, and I thought it was like, oh, it's an LGBTQ flag.
That's
like,
what I thought.
I'm like, I didn't know they were like super LGBTQ friendly here, and it's not. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So it's the indigenous people's flag, and it was they have it all over, like especially in the middle, like Andes regions of these countries, because that's where the indigenous people are. It's really interesting to me that their flag is rainbow, because if you study indigenous culture, you learn that the people who were the shamans were often kind of, I don't want to say transgender, but they were like non-binary individuals, and they would communicate with spirits, and they would be the ones that would just be different, and it's interesting to me that flag is
There it is.
representative of them. But
There it is.
these fascists are burning down this flag that to me is just so representative of the indigenous people. You know, they look at, like, they respect the earth, they respect the environment, they're all about community, collectivism. It's no surprise that they lean socialist.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just that's inherently what they are. And so to burn down this flag that to me would be an epic flag, like to us it means something different here in America, but
Yeah.
that's why I was like, wow, like this flag is so significant, and just to see it burn down is really sad to me.
Well, if you want to see something really sad, just look at the police officers in Bolivia. It says police officers cut the flag off their uniform.
Yeah.
Johnny, if you want to look at that real too as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we say when we talk about these police officers, like who paid them off? Who's talking to them? You know, the military. They were clearly cutting it right off their patch and putting their patch back on. So
and I just want to put up Mike Rovell's tweet because he's, well, the kids.
The kids? Is he the kids still running it?
I mean, I doubt Mike Rovell posted this tweet. He said, here we go again. And he retweeted a tweet where it was about, where he had tweeted before
From
a few
May 18th.
years ago. Yeah, or a few months ago, where he said, how many Latin American socialists do we have to kill before we realize that socialism doesn't work? And he retweeted that. And then he went on to also say, congratulations on winning power in Bolivia, CIA. Which is true. I mean, this is the only guy, whether it's him really or not, calling it out like as it should be. I want somebody to say, I want one of the presidential candidates to say, I would have liked one of them to say, this is a U.S.-backed coup. We need to, the CIA is behind all this. I mean, like, I understand that as a presidential candidate, you have to be careful with what you say, but God damn it, wouldn't it be nice to just hear abolish the CIA? Like, we have some of our congressional candidates running, like Joshua Collins talking about abolishing the CIA, but we don't have enough of the bigger senators and POTUS candidates really standing strong against the CIA. The CIA is what leads to ICE. The CIA is what leads to the regime change. And in arm with the military-industrial complex, they continue this perpetual cycle, and there's nothing we can do. Like, we can protest and be angry all we want, but we have to demand that our Congress people and our leaders actually start talking about it instead of toe tipping around the issue, because that's what I feel like is happening still right now with every single presidential candidate. I have yet to see somebody to be like, yeah, this is, you know.
Well, the problem is, fam, the last president that tried to abolish the CIA was shot in the face.
That's another
thing. That is the big problem. This is the elites.
But that shouldn't, like,
yeah, I know.
How are we okay with that as Americans?
I mean, well, that's something as the people.
This show is getting demonetized for sure, you guys. So please tune in. Please go to the CONVO couch, because we're talking about defending this, this standing against this stupid narrative, and we're talking about the truth here, and we're mentioning the CIA, and we're calling for the I'm calling. I don't want to put I don't want Pasta to get shot. I'm calling for the abolishment. of the CIA.
I said before the abolish ICE thing was cool, but it wasn't as depth. It wasn't as strong as abolish the CIA.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is where the problems come from.
Fams,
and I think because you don't. If you abolish
ICE.
one, you're not going to have to. The other one's just going to wivel out anyways.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. That ICE wouldn't be needed if we abolish the CIA, because this is something we haven't talked about on the show. We should talk about it right now, fam, because when it comes to some of these Republican people, the Donald Trump people, the people who said build a wall, build a wall, build a wall, it's because they're pissed off of the influx of migration coming into their. Well, guess what causes the migration problem?
Freaking Republicans! Look at what Marco Rubio is doing. And is pushing regime change with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Mr. Non-Interventionist, Mr. Drain the Swamp, is pushing regime change. Right? Like, this is disgusting. You think he doesn't know about this? Are you kidding me?
Here's Pompeo tweet that he did a couple days ago. Fully support the findings of the OAS official report recommending new elections in Bolivia to ensure a truly democratic process representative of the people's will.
Pro tip, when these neocons and neoliberals agree on something, you should believe the opposite. Because
what about the election process in the U.S.? We should start there.
Why don't we start there? There's Pasta Jardula.
I didn't know it was okay. Yeah. Well, see, when I was going through this stuff the other night, I was trying to read stuff. I'm trying to find money lines because, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this as the show goes along. The tweets from Pompeo were the most discovering. Like, okay, I heard about the leaked audio. I couldn't listen to it. That article wasn't out yet. And I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. But these guys are out in the open about it. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz.
Completely out in the open, just straight line.
Completely.
Straight line.
They're lying.
Completely out of the
straight line.
Yeah. Jim Garrison left us a super chat contribution on the CONVO couch YouTube as we just hit 100 watchers. Thank you, Jim Garrison, as it is always appreciated on the couch. The CIA is doing what the CIA has been doing since 1947.
Should I apply to the CIA, you guys? Do you think they'll hire me?
Well, they will, because they know you're against you. Like, they're just going to pay you off.
We should show up at the fucking Department of State.
Like, hey, I want to work for you guys.
Thank you for the super chat contribution from Bethlehem Tesfaye. Thank you so much. Speaking truth to power, it was great meeting you all last night. Bethlehem, it was great meeting you too as well.
Absolutely.
There
It was
you
awesome
go.
seeing you.
Maybe since we talked about her, we should talk about last night and what
Yeah.
Let's start. You start off here, fam, because before we get to
Okay.
circling the wagons with the
Real quick,
Yes.
on Mike Pompeo's tweet, I just want to look at all the comments. Everyone's just trashing Pompeo.
Of course.
This means the U.S. supports today's coup in Bolivia. Pompeo and Trump couldn't care less about electoral credibility anywhere, even in the United States. Someone's like, okay, fascist.
okay, fascist.
boomers.
Someone said hypocritical tweet of the day. Someone said, let's start by protecting our elections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here's this one. Hello, Mr. Pompeo. Remember me, Juan? No, not Juan Valdez. Juan
Juan Guaido.
Guaido. Can I be president of Bolivia too?
Classic. It's
That
always
show was
about
great.
resource extraction. It's always about corporations.
We're retweeting
And
that
corporate takeover of the state is fascism. Corporate takeover of the state, merging the state with corporation is fascism.
That is what the Western Empire wants. They want everybody to be a corporation that's owned. I mean, right now we have like 2 cell phone companies left because they all bought each other out.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous and it's just so
AT&T
disgusting. This
is-
is blatant. This is blatant regime change, blatant coup, and we need to talk about that. So you want to go not to this, but to
Yeah, let's go down to last night. Let's talk about it too
Okay.
as well, because as it pertaining to Tulsi Gabbard's answer, whatnot, and
Okay.
Johnny, I think you're gonna play the clip real quick, right? And we'll
Yes.
talk. I'll let Fee go first, and
Okay.
since she asked the question.
So yeah, Tulsi Gabbard had a Tulsi's Veterans Day town hall, and we were able to cover that and ask her a few questions later.
Yeah,
You're-
directly after the town hall, there was a press conference along
Yeah.
with who else was there? ABC.
We had some mainstream media finally
Okay.
getting
I just want to point out, yes, finally, the mainstream media wasn't here last time, and they were here.
Now
We
they're
noted.
showing up.
Tina Berg from Real Progressives was with us too, and she was able to ask a question. But you guys are going to see the difference in questions and quality of questions between what we and Tina asked versus what ABC and CB.
Well, we're not showing the full clip yet.
Oh, you're
No.
not.
No,
Okay.
we're just doing
We'll just show you Tulsi,
her
yeah.
answer on Bolivia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well,
just
well,
an
yeah,
example.
yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What is your opinion on what is going on in Bolivia with Evo Morales, who was just ousted in what appears to be a U.S.-backed coup?
I'm really gathering the facts and the information around this. I don't have the full picture, the full story. There are a lot of different narratives being brought forward on what has led to his announced resignation, and so I need to get the facts first.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Fam, you want me to do the super chat? I'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do that after. Let's talk about this right now. Go ahead. So,
Okay, so I asked Tulsi Gabbard because I had been live streaming the thing on Twitter, and people were like, ask Tulsi Gabbard about Bolivia. Ask Tulsi Gabbard. Everybody wanted me to ask her about Bolivia. She had gone on Jimmy Dore, and
Yeah.
he did not ask her about Bolivia. People were like, what the hell? Like, why did you ask her about Bolivia? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her about Bolivia. And I asked her, and I have to be honest, I was disappointed in her answer. And Pasta knows that I was disappointed in her
Yeah.
answer. You couldn't see my face, but I was disappointed. And the reason I was disappointed is because I believe as a regime change candidate, you should be on top of this. Like, and it's not been happening. I mean, what we're talking about now is breaking news, but this has been happening for the last maybe 5 days where we've seen like, okay, the elections and what's going on, and what they were calling the elections invalidated, and they were pushing for Evo Morales to go out, and these protests develop. And I was expecting her, I wanted her, because she's like the regime change candidate, to knock it out of the park and be like, go beyond what Bernie said. Because I expected Bernie to say something along those lines, which is fine. Because this isn't necessarily his wheelhouse, but this is her wheelhouse. And she could have absolutely gone far and beyond and said, look, like, you know, this is definitely a coup, not maybe what looks like to be. No, this is definitely a coup. The Trump and his minions have, you know, pushed this regime change, and we should stand against any involvement in another country's politics or elections and stop being the police of the world. I mean, this would have been a perfect time, and I would have advised her as much if I could have. But she didn't say that. Instead, she said, oh, I need to, you know, I'm getting a lot of narratives and I need to step back and look at the information, which isn't a terrible answer. I think it's decent to say, to be honest at least, and not make
Yeah,
something
she's
up.
being honest.
Because last time she spoke without knowing too much on Hong Kong, and Pasta was rightfully
I was upset about
that. Then she did her research, but she also said, okay, I still have to do more research, and came back and gave a great answer on Hong Kong. I expect her to do the same. I'm not surprised entirely that she did give this answer, because she's the kind of person that is almost, she thinks way long before she speaks. She doesn't just speak out. She assesses everything. You know, it's that military background. Like, she has to look at everything, make sure that the facts are there, and then go above and beyond and give a very deep answer.
Yeah.
Like I said, I loved Bernie speaking out on this, because he hasn't really done something like this before, and this was a leftist socialist government, and I was very excited. But I expect her to go a little bit deeper than he will, and I do hold her to a higher standard in that case.
I think she will go deeper. I think she will go deeper.
And I think she will, and I expect her answer.
Let me say this much: today we know so much more today than we do last night. I mean, really, literally, we just got off. You know, we a little slow start here because the Gray Zone was going live, and they were pulling out, you know, this and that and this and that. And this is a coup that kind of crept up on us in a way. I mean, we could see the lines at how long is America going to sit back on this? When are they going to make a move? But just like when I just talked to Rachel Brunke 2 hours ago, it's like, who paid off the military? Who paid off the cops? Those financial lines, they're not there completely.
Right.
You know, the mask is not completely pulled off the villain, or whatever you want to call him. But it's a situation where I can see her wanting to do more homework before she put it out there. You know, understanding the referendum, understanding the Supreme Court, understanding the voting system. There's a lot of homework here, and the girl is working on such a short, you know, she doesn't have the money for foreign policy advisors. She doesn't have the money to do all that stuff. So
I mean, I wouldn't want her to have a foreign policy advisor, which, with what's out there, they're all centrist, the majority of them.
Well, I would hire Ben Norton. Somebody's like, well, who do you want it to be? I would go for one of the Gray Zone guys and say, hey, listen, be my advisor.
Yeah.
I would do that, honestly, because it's not going to cost you take a ton of dollars. You're going to have great resources and people to rely on in the Gray Zone and get that information out there. I mean, that's me personally. Now, here's what I got out of yesterday, fam, and it was something that you had talked about that really kind of resonated inside of me, and that is language matters. We talked about the choice thing.
Right.
Yeah, okay, we understand what we're saying, but it's not the right words to use. You're not framing it right. And I wish yesterday she would have framed it right. Hey, listen, there's a lot of ins and outs. There's a lot of more things I want to look into. But to be honest with you, if America's involved in any way and we haven't seen it completely, then we shouldn't even be there whatsoever. We can't continue to go around and policing and hands off Bolivia if we find out there are some serious connections. Something to that magnitude.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You didn't have to necessarily give the whole thing. Just kind of give an introduction. Read the room, and read, like, there's a reason. This is all over the internet. I mean, I've been talking about this. Everybody's been talking about, every foreign policy person too, and even non-foreign policy people have been talking about this. And just, you know, when Bernie has done something too, like, a lot of people are just waiting to jump on her to be like, oh, what's she gonna say? What's she gonna say? And it's kind of like, to me, like, she should have had something. And I know she's been busy. I know, because I knew all the events she was going to this whole weekend, and, you know, and I don't blame her for being busy. I know she's busy, and I know it's tough, and it's a lot. And she doesn't have somebody on to tweet for her, like, all the time. Like, Bernie Sanders has a whole team of people. So to compare the two on an equal basis is not fair either. But
and you don't really know if Bernie tweeted that.
No,
right?
he didn't. I know he does, unless it says BS. He said he's it's not him. But that's and he usually tweets from his Senator Sanders account, not his personal account.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously it's a little bit different in regards to Tulsi. But again, I know people were disappointed because they've been like, they expected her to be like, oh yeah, like, knock it out of the ballpark. This is regime change, because it is regime change. And I didn't like when she said that there's a lot of narratives that are being thrown. Yeah, well, there are, but it's very clear what the truth is, especially when people like Trump, Pompeo, Ted Cruz, Michael Rubio are lining up with a lot of the neoliberal establishment, like the New York Times, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we support this coup." Like, when they do that, you need to know, okay, like, why are they supporting this coup? And you look at the OAS, and then you're looking at the indigenous element of it, and that Morales was a president and that fell in line with Bernie Sanders, with Lula. With AMLO. And so you're
Maduro.
seeing that, and Maduro, yeah, exactly. So. I mean, I expected a little more. I forgive her because of how busy she was, and I'm not the kind of person that's like, strike one, strike two. No, like, I think she has a lot on her plate. But I do look forward to her full answer because I have a feeling it'll be a good one.
But it was just like the last time we had a town hall meeting with her, and he was like, "Oh, dude, like Fiorella, you're going in the room to ask her a question, and breaking news: Venezuela, the embassy was raided at that time. So you're like hitting her on this stuff. She was coming from one event to another event to another event, and it's there, and we're like, boom, and she just like, I thought she had matured to the point of that, you know. First of all, when I hit her with China and Hong Kong, she kind of like tried to like BS it a little bit, right? Like, look to the people of Hong Kong. Look to the people of Hong Kong, and then whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then she got up to speed on it, and another town hall in Iowa or New Hampshire, she just nailed it. She looked into it, and she saw what was going on, and she answered it correctly. Yesterday, she didn't even do that. Listen, I want to get all the information. I want to look at everything before I make any comment or statement. Let me look at all the facts.
And Tulsi's really strong on the Middle East, is strong on that. But Latin America, I can tell, is her weakness as far as foreign policy. And that's something like it's you know, it's a constructive criticism.
I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue that.
I genuinely believe it's and that's in Latin America for me is like my I'm more aware of it. And so I just, you know, I'm a little bit more like hardcore on it because of that. So I think there's room for there, but the thing I want her to do more and more each time, and that I want every candidate to do, including Bernie Sanders, is what Marianne Williamson did, is tie these regime change wars to the immigration every single time directly. That is how you get Republicans to listen to. Every single time, because if you're a Republican, you don't want this to happen, because in a couple years, all these people who are under unrest are going to come into this country
on your door.
and seek political asylum. And who are you to turn them down when you supported regime change?
Yeah, that's when Anomaly was on the show. I said, you can't call anybody illegal, period. He goes, which ones? I'm like, anybody, because the fact is that we're causing the problem, and they're knocking on their door. They're at our doorsteps. But as far as Tulsi's concerned, I understand the answer, but this is, again, the language makes it. Especially when it's your first time getting asked this, and you know the CONVO couch is going to be there.
Yeah, I mean,
so you know it's going to be, something. What's going on in foreign policy right now? Okay, what are they
Venezuela is what I asked her. Then Kashmir. I was the first one to ask her on Kashmir. The first
China,
one to ask her on Bolivia.
Yeah.
First one to ask
Hong Kong.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like when I said, what about the NED? I followed up with all the nefarious acts from the NED. She's like, I don't know. You know, she found out there, but you know this stuff is coming at you. But you know, when the mainstream media is asking questions next to you, what are they going to ask you? Tulsi, you're thinking about running third-party candidate. I know you've only been asked this question 27 times, but will you have a different answer for me? It's like I wanted to tell the fucking mainstream media.
Tina was getting mad because they kept like speaking out of turn, ABC and CBS, and they were the one lady asked, "Do you think America's ready for a woman of color?" To be like, these are the questions they're asking you guys.
We're gonna do a video on this.
We have. You guys can watch the video. It's on the CONVO couch.
Do a schmear video.
He's gonna do it. We're gonna show you what the mainstream media is doing, because in Tulsi's speech last night, she also pointed out that independent media is very important and is necessary. She talked about. I was like.
I was hoping she'd call out the CONVO couch.
You got the CONVO couch over here, but no, she can call me out for not showing up to work out because my friend my partner, sells me out over here.
Yeah, so Tulsi and I worked out together, and she was grueling. Chris was there too, and several of our Twitter followers and our Twitter fams were there. And you weren't there, fam, and he was at home eating a sandwich and watching football. I just want to say, while I was working out and I'm still aching.
Yes, I had work, so I couldn't make it.
Johnny had work.
Second job.
No, he would have. He had a second job. Yeah, but he would have. No, that's true. But he would have came out and worked out. Nico House though said he wouldn't work out with her because
she goes like crazy, man. She's got the veterans on the beach there.
I mean, the veterans went crazy.
They went for an easy workout that time.
That was honestly, like, it was probably easy for them, but for everybody else was like.
It's funny because somebody who worked out with you, her name was Gloria, and she was at the place yesterday. I said, what area would you like to see Tulsi improve on? She's like, I would like to see her improve on foreign policy in South and Central America. Yeah, funny what you just said, because she feels that, and a lot of people have said this, other Tulsi supporters have said, you know, she's great when it comes to regime change in the Middle East. She understands that. The war on Hawk, you know, the Wahhabism, but the South and Central America, let's get up to par with that.
Yeah.
Let's get up to speed.
Yep, exactly.
Grandpa Tippy Toes on the MCSC network says, it might be safer to talk about weeding out rogue elements.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, that's not rogue elements in the national security state. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Go ahead, buddy.
Fams, I think she doesn't have an answer for Bolivia because I think she was really busy writing this letter to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, she wrote a letter to Hillary Clinton, which is important.
Let's do it.
She demanded.
Breaking.
Here it is. Breaking. It's kind of funny because we said this. We shared this last night. I was like, "Oh, she's gonna."
Johnny, you want to read it? You can read it.
Defamation of character against Hillary Clinton.
Tulsi demands a public apology on defamatory statements made by Hillary Clinton, and this was today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they posted it on Instagram today, and I think the email was sent yesterday. Correct?
She mentioned it, right?
Yes.
What did she say?
Oh, you wanted me to read
Yep.
the letter? Okay. I got the PDF here.
There we are.
So here's an email sent to the CONVO couch. See, we read our emails.
You try.
Presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard's campaign's legal counsel released the following letter today concerning Hillary Clinton's defamation of Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Dear Secretary Clinton, we write on you on behalf of our client, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. On October 17th, you published this statement on the podcast. You know, I'm not making predictions. She's a Russian asset.
Yep.
One day after making this statement, CNN asked your spokesman whether this statement was made about Congresswoman Gabbard. He responded, yes, if the nesting doll fits.
Wow.
Your statement is defamatory, and we demand that you retract it immediately. The statement is false. Congresswoman Gabbard is not being groomed by Russia to be a third-party candidate, nor is she a Russian asset. Rather, she is a patriotic, loyal American, a sitting four-term United States Congresswoman and a major in the United States Army National Guard. As such, she is a loyal American who has taken an oath declaring her allegiance to the United States of America, both as a soldier and as a member of Congress. She's been serving for 16 years in the Army National Guard, having voluntarily deployed twice to war zones. It looks like Hillary was claiming that the statement was about Republicans, not Russians.
Yeah.
So she's just trying to BS her way out of it.
But this makes no sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they say it basically makes no sense. That is, of course, because you're Republicans, not Russian. Spin is rubbish. I like that. I like that they use the word rubbish.
Rubbish.
In any event, this strained interpretation bears no legal weight. Defamation claims are not determined by the speaker's post hoc rationalizations. They are determined by how the statement was read and understood by the public. Here, the public universally understood your statement exactly as you intended it to be understood, and exactly as you made it. That Tulsi Gabbard, a sitting congresswoman, U.S. Army major, and candidate for the president of the United States, is a Russian asset.
Niet.
This is how your statement was understood by those in political circles such as Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang, to list some. In making the statement, you knew it was false. Congresswoman is not a Russian asset, is not being groomed by Russia. Besides your statement, no law enforcement or intelligence agencies have claimed, much less presented any evidence. This fabricated story is so factually improbable that it is actionable as defamation. Mm-hmm. In light of this, here's the good part. In light of this, we demand that you immediately hold a press conference to verbally retract in full your comments. We also demand that you immediately publish this full and fair retraction on the Twitter account at Hillary Clinton and distribute it to CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. And here's what they want to be released. On October 17th, 2019, I made certain statements about Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Among other things, I accused her of being a Russian asset and that Russia was grooming her to be a third-party presidential candidate. I was wrong. I never should have made these remarks, and I apologize. I did not have any basis for making these statements. I acknowledge my grave mistake and error in judgment in this matter. Yeah, right. I support and admire the work that Congresswoman Gabbard has done and will continue to do in serving our country.
I like the last
Tulsi,
sentence.
I love you, but
I
you
like
really
the last
expect
sentence.
Hillary Clinton to
this is like a punch in the gut
I like
to
the
Hillary
last
Clinton.
sentence.
This is like
I support and admire the work. You can't even say I support and admire. Say it, Hillary, or I'll snap your neck. Say it. Say it, Hillary.
She's never gonna say that, you
But
guys.
it's so great that she could do this stuff, man. That's so awesome.
It is freaking awesome.
It is so
Who else
great.
has done this?
Nobody's
ever?
been that savage.
Ever.
You got to put it on your Twitter. You got to send that to
Hashtag
CNN.
Stirring the pot, hashtag savage, hashtag slay.
Hashtag.
Guys, I got to read a statement
Wow.
from our thing because somebody was saying, Jesus Zamora, how you doing, Jesus? Jesus Zamora said, Kamala Harris, what's your opinion of the American-led coup in Bolivia? That little black girl was me. Savage, Jesus Zamora. Savage, you son of a bitch.
Damn
I love
it,
the
why
fact
can't
that you
I
are.
ask her?
Oh
Maybe
my
at
God.
the convention I'll ask her.
We should. Squids McGracken, Jason V, Keen James, all hanging out. Yo Mully, Aurelius Prime, Deep Space, Saul, better call Saul, all hanging out with us on the
What's up,
Convo
guys?
Couch today, and on the MCSC network, Yavo, and D Defed, Mike Fagan. And we haven't said anything about those people that were on the Facebook fam.
Facebook is all.
Sarah Williams is in the
Sarah.
house. Michiko, we love you, Michiko.
Michiko, I missed you. I didn't get to see you.
Cheyenne Tierra, I hope you're feeling good
Hey,
today, girl.
Cheyenne.
I love you. Great to see you. Allison, David Hildebrand. Come learn about some foreign policy. Come talk some foreign policy with us, David.
We'll see you at the convention.
We'll see you at the convention. Tita Cochinita is there. And a good friend of ours, our first live stream, our first guest ever, Brenda Gutierrez, has also joined in
Hi,
on
Brenda.
the Facebooks.
Yeah, Brenda's really big on fighting for Indigenous people here too, and it's really telling how we talk about racism in America, but it's not just racism; it's Western imperialism.
Yep.
It's just this whole takeover, not only in America but in Central and South America, and there are forces right now fighting against that, fighting against the overtake, because all Latin America wants is to be free of us and like what we've been doing. I mean, just the things we've been imposing on Latin America, it's just disgusting. And I wish, I don't know if we I guess we could show it later, but I just want I want you guys to watch that video. It's on our YouTube, of the stupid questions that these anchors get paid
It's not up yet.
thousands of dollars. Oh, it's not up
We're
yet?
going to watch
I
it.
gotta.
He's going to make a video.
I'm gonna
of that.
clip up some.
Oh,
we'll
okay,
clip it on.
okay.
He's going to make
Just
a
the
fun
Brazil
one.
one is up. There was one up on the Patreon. You said it was. I'm sorry.
It was just two questions that we asked.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Bolivia one. And I also asked last night, if you haven't gone and seen it, I asked her if she would talk to Prime Minister Khan of Pakistan.
Yeah.
That was also up
Which
on
is important, and let's discuss that. I mean, it's important
Yeah.
for her to do that.
Can we play that clip, Johnny?
Yeah, you want to play it?
Yeah. Go
So
ahead.
people criticize her for talking to Modi only. So Pasta asked her about if she would talk to the opposite side.
Would like to send a shout out to our friend Samira Khan. Listen to this, Samira.
You got a lot of criticism for always meeting with Narendra Modi. Would you consider meeting with Irhan Khan as well, Prime Minister? And if you did, what would be your ideological approach to bringing peace to that region?
Yeah, of course. We've got to have the courage to meet with leaders of other countries in the pursuit of peace and national security. Look, India and Pakistan have a long-standing conflict with many issues that they need to resolve themselves. I think both leaders have recognized that's only through those direct negotiations and diplomacy that they do that. And I think in the interest of peace, given that these two countries are nuclear-armed nations, to do what we can to be able to support those peaceful negotiations is in all of our best interests. Thank you.
Slam dunk on that one, right? That's
Yeah.
like one of those when you hit the... Remember those guys who used to jump off the trampoline and come straight down on the slam dunk? That's like one of those slam dunks, and I'm so glad that we finally got this on record. Somebody even said, were you surprised at the answer? I bet you weren't, but I'm glad that you put it on record. Because look at the way she's talking. She even said throughout that answer that they have to resolve this situation themselves. You know what I'm saying? It's just the perfect answer. And the guy who was standing there, who nobody knew who he was, he even gave a little...
Yeah.
So we know it was a pretty good answer.
I bet he was like, wow, these guys are actually asking some questions here. Like, wow.
Oh my!
The only three people that were there asking real questions were us, and I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
These other people get paid.
They get paid
to do this shit, and
Of course they get
so
paid.
doo-doo.
and they have the nice cameras too. Like, what a waste!
Yeah.
What a waste!
Well, the one guy with the camera was kind of trying to nudge me over, and I was like, brother, and I kind of like stood still. I'm like, you just show up to these motherfucking events and you think you can push the combo couch out of the way?
Yeah. Now that Tulsi's popular and gaining
Now they're
momentum,
showing
you're that's what we noticed. We were talking about that, like, and I mean, Johnny will cut it up later, and I put it on my Twitter. But Tina did ask her on BDS, and she had on to Jimmy Dore and talked about BDS, and reaffirmed her stance that she supports free speech and people to protest on against what's going on in Palestine, but she does not support BDS. And I, of course, I support BDS. And we spoke to Kim Iverson last night about her stance, and she does not support BDS, and she told us why. And and I would love to have Kim Iverson and maybe Tina or maybe one of her friends on to kind of discuss the two sides.
And it's because the definition of BDS
is boycott, divestment, sanctions.
Well, no, but Kim was saying that people are saying it's a one-state solution,
Right.
while you're saying it's a two-state solution.
Right. So she says the leaders are saying it's a one-state solution, bottom line. And some people agree with a one-state solution, and some people believe that only a two-state solution is possible. And that's pretty much where the debate is. And also, like, it's not even about what you are for at this point. It's more of like, what is the solution? Like, people are dying, people are being mistreated. There's human rights violations. Yeah, they're not having access to water. They can't rebuild their homes. I mean, that is undeniable. It's military occupation and an apartheid, depending on where you are, and it's just wrong, and we need to do something about it. And I think people need to stop tiptoeing, and we need all of our presidential candidates to do much better on it. Bernie Sanders is not for BDS either, and he has said that he believes that it is an anti-Semitic, which is not. It's not. And one of the most ardent proponents of BDS is Tina Berg, who is a Jew, and she can't even go to Israel because they won't let her because she's pro BDS. And that's the thing. Jews for Peace are, if you're part of them, you can't go. And I want to go because that's why I wanted to talk to Kim, because I want to go and I want to see really what's in there and like actually find a way to go into Gaza. I don't know how possible that'll be, but as close as I can get,
Go to
I
the
would
West
love
Bank
to.
first and,
yeah,
if you
I would
can,
love to go.
You do what
and,
she did and kind of get over there and see what's going on. I think it was life-changing for her. You saw her and stuff.
Yeah.
It was such an intense conversation. It's like after Tulsi spoke, we got our questions, then Tulsi took the time to sit there, take pictures, shake hands with about 240 people.
Yeah,
Right?
it was over 200 people.
There was at that entire thing, there was way more than that.
Yeah.
There's probably more like 500 people or so, but I think some people left.
Yeah.
But
it was a lot of people. We took some shots, we did it, and it was great. But then we were off to the side, and it was kind of like Kim Iverson, the CONVO couch, a couple of the independent media people, just those political hats that just wanted to join the conversation. It was like 8 of us, and Tulsi was done, and she came walking over and was like, "What's going on over here?" And you saw our faces. We were having a serious conversation about this. And this is such a hard situation. This is one of the hardest, most complex situations. I remember when we went to a town hall, somebody took a question, and somebody's like, Israel and Palestine, what would you do to kind of fix the situation? I was like, easy one, Tulsi. Softball. She looked over to me and laughed. Remember? And then she went to answer the question because it is such a hard, complicated situation, and I think we'll continue to dive into it.
It's complicated in the sense of resolving it at this point because of the history. It's really simple in terms of who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side. I mean, Israel was never a legitimate state. They occupied Palestine. They were never supposed to be there in the first place.
The British said they could, though.
It's like these are Jews that are like okay with it. Like it's not supposed to be a state, and the problem with having a two-state solution is if we let them have their own, they're going to be an ethno state, and we can't have that. I think I'm more and more leaning towards the one-state solution where because it reminds me a lot of South Africa.
Yeah.
And what that needed to happen because we can't. A bunch of racists are going to continue being racist if you let them. Like the only way that Mandela resolved that apartheid was to bring democracy and unity back into the country, and it seems impossible until it is done. He said.
You talk about Mandela and the apartheid. That was the one area where sanctions actually worked.
Right.
Split sanctions to force them to do something.
This would be the only area where I would.
Yeah.
And Kim Iverson said, I support boycott and divestment, but I don't support sanctions. I don't support sanctions either, but I feel like this might be the only place where I would, based on the human rights abuses.
Right.
But it's really difficult to say because it's a slippery slope with the sanctions. One more thing I want to, before we go.
Whoa, I want to get to that part right
there.
Oh,
this one,
Those
okay.
two real quick
Yeah, go ahead.
See that right below the Mike Gravel stuff on the thing because... and thank you for everybody out there watching. Yeah, because me and Johnny, we like to play hockey. Now, the definition of a goon in hockey, all right, is... That guy on the hockey team who's there, he's not the best one who can score all the time. He's not the best skater. He doesn't have good puck handling skills. He's there for one reason. He's the enforcer. He's the goon. If there's another guy on the team picking a fight, you send the goon out to go beat him up. Like, all right, get out there, goon.
Fam, this isn't a mob.
Well, no, it's a hockey term. Erdogan, we had some news from the Hill the other day, and it's kind of funny because I spoke to our friend Howard Gold, whose friend actually partaked in this right here. Erdogan's guards attacked U.S. Secret Service after protesters in 27, new documents show. Now, we're going to run a little quick video over here, but this is another reason why I can't stand Erdogan and the Turkish government, they can eat a bag of Richards. And
You want me to send him your bag?
oh my God, we should send them a bag of Richards. But let's go to this video. I just want to show you, these were peaceful protesters protesting across the way in Washington, D.C., and watch what Erdogan's goons do.
Bones.
So the guys in suits are Erdogan's
You
guys.
see the guys go walking by and kicking somebody? They're not defending anybody. They're goons. They're there to beat and enforce.
This is where?
This is in Washington, D.C., when Erdogan was going to beat Trump. Total goons. Watch this guy walking around all bloody. He's all blood.
Get back! They attacked this man, you saw him.
Blood all over the place. And they're trying to go back for more.
What a goon.
Wow, fam.
The cop was hitting one of the guys with the billy club. Yes, the cop saw one of the guys getting beat up when an American protester, and he started beating the Turkish guy over the back. You're like, get off him, get off him. But none of these guys got charged. They all left the country. Some of them even hit a couple Secret Service guys, I guess. But once again, fascist cowards is right, Jordan Allen. That's all I got to say on that. I just want to report because now the Hill just released it. There's not going to be any charges of any of those guys who just was able to casually go across the street and start hitting on American citizens who were peacefully protesting.
Yep.
Erdogan, eat a bag of Richards.
I just wanted to mention really quick, Chesaboudin won the San Francisco DA race.
Yes, it's on the bottom
And he is the son of two radical revolutionaries who are they basically were still, his mom is released, but his dad is still serving life in prison. They had to accept a plea bargain where he accepted the murder, but they really weren't actual murders. And it's important because this guy was just a public defender, and he hadn't actually been making a lot of money at all, and he won. And this is they were part of his parents were part of the Weather Underground.
Yeah.
And they were anti-war, like pro-peace protesters who put bombs in the Pentagon, and they actually called to warn people so that wouldn't happen. And then later on, they were driving a getaway car, and that's when they had to take the plea deal. But they were never actually were actually involved in any murder. Yeah. This is really important because this person is a straight up socialist. He's running DSA, but his stances are very, very much socialist. And for this guy who was a public defender who says he's going to change, reform everything, especially when it comes to prison reform and criminal justice, we really need that in California. When we have people like Nancy Pelosi in power and Jackie Lacey down here, we need somebody like that that's going to turn around and drive this. Now, the person that was elected there moved to LA to run against Jackie Lacey. It's really interesting. It's like, okay,
wow, they're playing, and there's somebody else that I just got a message from somebody that there's somebody else who just threw their hat in the ring too as well, and they want to come on the CONVO couch. We'll get you more information, and I'm gonna really lead on Fam here because Fam understands a lot of this. The DAs, your boyfriend Krasner.
Yeah.
Well, did you break up with him yet? After he supported
I did break up with him. I'll still like be friends with
Larry?
him. No, I'm still friends with him, but we're not in a relationship anymore.
Because of Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, he was cute with the puppy and all, but
No, I know somebody who you wouldn't take a picture with because they supported Elizabeth Warren. I ain't mention no names, but Fiorella does not like Elizabeth Warren, so.
No, Elizabeth Warren. We don't have it, but just so you guys know, everybody's been talking about it. She was interviewed by Amy Goodman from Democracy Now, and Amy Goodman asked her, basic questions about. She asked her about the billionaires, and Elizabeth Warren was like, "Oh yes, good for them, blah blah blah. But then Amy Goodman was talking about the past and her past stances, and Elizabeth Warren got defensive, and when she was leaving, got up to leave, and Amy Goodman was like, "Thank you for being here," and Elizabeth Warren goes, "Yeah," and walks away. She looks so angry, and she has this face, and
I am Amy Good,
where she just looks so angry, like towards the end where she's leaving. She's like, Amy Goodman didn't ask her anything out of the ordinary. She simply asked her a typical question. I don't know if you can find it towards the end where she just gets like, oh, and like just
still felt today.
This woman's voice annoys
official
me.
discrimination of the United States government that is still felt today, and we got to take steps toward making that right. And that's what my housing plan is.
Senator Warren, just 30 seconds left.
Yeah, this
but
one right
speaking about racial injustice, do you think the order of the primary states should change? You have Iowa and New Hampshire.
Wait, let me just, before you finish, are you actually going to ask me to sit here and criticize Iowa and New Hampshire?
No, I'm asking about the order.
No, that is what Iowa and New Hampshire
let me
are all
just
about.
ask, they're two of the whitest states in the country. And then we move to South Carolina with a very significant population of people of color. And it means the candidates spend so much of their time catering to those first two states. Overall, do you think that should change?
Look, I'm just a player in the game on this one. And I am delighted to be in South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Wow,
they
she
cut
got a
it
little-
off.
She got a little
They
pissy
cut
there.
it
But you could
off.
tell she was getting a little pissy there and
that
stuff like
sucks.
that.
She
And
gets
that's a
up.
terrible answer.
She gets up and she walks, and Amy Goodman's like, "Thank you," and she goes, "Yeah." Just like that, and it's like, holy shit, what did Amy
Wow.
Goodman? She didn't even ask anything out of the ordinary.
No, well, you know.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, listen, we got to get out of here, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen. We've had a long show. I just want to remind everybody that the clips that we played today from the town hall yesterday were up on our Patreon and our Rockfin first, our premium Rockfin and premium Patriots.
So please join us in our Patreon, because we need some new Patreon members, and we will go ahead and put your name up there, and we're going to be putting more and more things up there. I told Pasta we also are going to create our own Patreons,
You
but
still have to cook for me from when you lost from the first game challenge.
I
and
didn't
we're
lose
supposed to
fair
put it
and
up on
square.
Patriot.
The reason I'm
You
not
lost.
accepting, I'm not giving in this contested election.
It's once
I'm
again,
contesting this election. I am
honey,
not giving in.
This isn't Bolivia here. This is the House, and
No,
you
this
lost.
is a DNC, and you rigged the election.
And I rigged it.
in favor of the establishment.
I did rig that
and
election.
I'm not giving in.
All right. Well, maybe she won't cook for me now. Maybe she'll cook another time. We'll play
I'll
another
cook
game.
lettuce for you, and I know you won't eat it.
But listen, if you do want to see those interviews first, go to our Patreon, go to our Rockfin, become premium member on Rockfin. That's the thing we want you to do most. And if you want to support us in any way, shape, or fashion, you have a few bucks, $1.90, $2 a month. Throw it to us on Patreon, and you'll get that stuff first, fam.
Yeah, and there was I forget his name, but he took a picture with me yesterday, and he was waiting for his shirt.
Who?
Combo couch shirt.
Steve Wilbrand, David Bond.
Was it?
Jason Small, Carl
message
Hines.
me if you're watching, because I
Michael
want to make sure you
Cruz.
get your shirt. And then there was a young woman, a lady that was there, and she said she talked to you. She's Ethiopian.
Oh yeah. Totally. She just left that. She was in the super chat.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she said she loves she loves it when you say your jingle, because I get mad.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're
Which
so
jingle?
different. Pasta is like over the top, like it's like a theater actor versus a film actor. Pasta's like, da, and I'm just like, let's get to the
Which tier
information.
are you talking about?
Huh?
You talking about, thank you for the super chat contributions, because it is always
And she
appreciated on the
thinks I'm
couch.
gonna punch you, which I will. Like,
You
it's just
do.
annoying.
In your mind, you do and stuff.
I'm
but
not advocating domestic violence, by the way, you guys. I just want to point that out. I'm a
Sure.
progressive, but
ROKFIN.
But if you guys want to
is
see me
the
punch
choice.
Pasta, if you guys donate to the Patreon, maybe I'll make a video.
If you
of
get high
myself.
enough, I'll take a shot from fee. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, what?
If
Like-
you get, I'll take a boom shot from fee. If you get that Patreon up high,
Yeah, right.
I'll let you get a shot on me and stuff like that. Not a punch, an open face slap that I can recover from.
we can act it out.
Ah!
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining on in. Remember to get onto over those platforms. We also have a Savage Twitter and a great Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, which hardly anybody goes on, Twitter, Periscope,
Twitter.
Rockfin,
Twitter sounds dirty. Don't
and a couple
say that.
YouTubes. And special thanks to the MCSE Network, Nico House, Sophia, and Robbie Jagger. We love you guys as well. For Pasta Jardula
Fiorella.
and Johnny Sue on those ones and twos.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Say the jingle.
Combo out. It's not a jingle.
It's
You
a-
were